time, y'all.
Okay.
Hey,
welcome to Tuesday Night Bible Study.
We have this weekend gaming party. You don't want to miss this, and we'll be watching the weather, but it'll be fun. So stay online with us, and we will make sure that we contact you about the weather and keeping up to date with that.
Yeah.
So you can check out our Facebook page, our website, all that stuff to keep up to date with what's going on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I was ready to start in one direction, but God changed it last minute. So, yeah. So let's go to Proverbs 4:23. Proverbs 4:23. And we've been talking about, remember the invitation where God said, follow me, and then the mission where we get the mission from God. And then comes the testing time. And, you know, who said it has to be bad?
Yeah.
You know, when you're in school and you learn something, guess what? There's a test. Is that a bad thing? No. So, and it's just, you know, that test really makes you sure-footed. Like, I remember one time we went to, like, this thing and it made us, and it seemed like persecution, but it made us get solidified in finding out, making sure that God wanted us in this certain thing. And it made us even stronger because after that, you come out and you're like, I know I have God's word on it. Anyway.
Well, just think about if you never took tests.
Oh.
No quizzes, no tests. If, you know, well, I mean, just think of where the most common place you have tests is in school. What if they never took tests? Think about just what's implied with that. You would never know how you're doing. So there would never be any correction. And so if you're in the wrong direction, you'll just keep going until, I mean, you get nowhere and years go by.
Yeah.
We don't want that spiritually.
Well, think about drivers. Never had a test.
Never had a test.
Oh, wow.
Surgeons, medical people, pilots, never had a test. Never retested. You know, a lot of nurses get retested.
I think they're pushing for some of that, but that's ridiculous.
Airplanes. If they never tested the airplane, if
I
it
would
was
not
sound
do
to fly,
Oh.
they test those things under extreme situations to make sure that, well, this is quality made.
Well, they test luggage.
Yeah.
They have elephants stand on them. I saw it on a commercial.
Oh, well then it's
true,
true.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, that's how you get them closed when you're packing.
Take something out of there or get...
Well, it's not like it's a secret. I'll just say the persecution was people, not anybody here, even in this state.
Sorry.
They came against, that's like the biggest persecution we experience, it seems like, is against our family.
Oh.
And it's nobody here, nobody we know.
We're just used to it now.
Yeah. And they came, you know, saying that you should be doing your own thing. You know, if they do certain things, you shouldn't do what they do. But we're like, wait a second. So we each, you know, separately went to our Bibles, our journals, to God, and we just got so sure-footed. This is where we're supposed to be.
And the heads of their ministry that they follow, their family's doing like what our family's doing. And so it didn't make sense.
But anyway,
Jesus said we would have persecution.
Yeah.
He said the blessing, and then he'd say with persecution. So I question myself then, if I'm not experiencing persecution, am I doing anything? You know?
That's good.
Well, it's like working out. If there's no resistance, are you even doing anything? I'm lifting that 2-pound weight and I'm going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're not going to feel nothing. You got to do the stuff that, this is hard. Okay, now I know.
Yeah.
And persecution is not the same as every resistance, because the resistance can be the curse. That can be, but resistance, persecution, well, look at Jesus. And the Pharisees would come to him and they'd bring lawyers to try to trip him up in his words. Or they would stir the people. Paul, the bigger part of his thorn in the flesh was the devil would stir up persecution in every city he'd go to. He was stoned, he was whipped, you know, they all these crazy things. That's persecution. For preaching the word, for preaching the truth. And persecution is so specific and unique to Christianity because you don't really see that because it's spiritual. It has a spiritual law. You don't, people who are telling a lie, why don't they get persecuted? Or other religions. Where Christianity, people die for it, they're beheaded. Other countries, this is going on.
You know, it's funny because that saying that says sticks and stones will break your bones, but words can never hurt you. You know what's really amazing is words can be harder than if somebody punched you in the face. You know what I mean? They can hurt so much. They've had kids commit suicide because of the words that are said online to them.
Yes.
It can just be so, crippling and just, And so,
But to speak
So
the truth.
persecution can be words. It can be,
Yeah. But to speak the truth when there's backlash, gonna happen because of it, or living for Jesus when you know it's not gonna be popular, it's healthy for Christians to have that. And if you never have that, look to the Lord and go to the Lord with that. Lord, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So Proverbs 4:23, keep or guard thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. In the Passion footnote, it says that heart in Hebrew means thoughts, your wills, discernment, and affections. And so this is let's go now to Matthew 5. Matthew 5. So I was reading through my second time around, reading all the healing, things in the gospel, and it sucked me into one of his sermons here.
I know it.
And
That
like,
happened.
I don't
It's
want
hard
skip
to
that.
go
It's
for-
so
Yes, yeah.
Anyway, it's so cool here that everything that Jesus taught, it always brought it back to the heart. God looks at the heart. And 1 Corinthians 13 says, it says you can be doing all the right things. You can even die, be burned at the stake, but if it's not done in love, which is a heart thing, it profits nothing. And so that's kind of not the danger, but the caution of, okay, you might be saying all the right things, doing all the right things on the outside, but what's going on at the heart? Because that's where Jesus is looking.
Oh boy.
So in verse 21, Matthew 5 and verse 21, Jesus starts on this and he goes, you've heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. And then Jesus says, but I say unto you, this is where Jesus brings it to the heart, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of judgment. Where is anger? That's of the heart.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual thing. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. And then let's see here. Then it says in
Oh,
verse...
wait, you got to go on with that. You got to
What?
finish that.
Okay.
But whosoever shall say thou fool shall be in danger of hell fire.
Woo! Wow.
And in the Amplified it says, you cursed fool, you empty-headed idiot, shall be liable to and unable to escape the hell of fire.
Whoa. And so Jesus just
So
cuts
next
to
time
the
you're
chase.
driving and you go, oh, you idiot! You stupid fool!
Oh my.
Watch yourself.
I've never heard
Then
I've never
in verse 27, he says, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. That's a physical act, right? Sin. Verse 28, but I say unto you, this is Jesus's and God's perspective,
Oh,
that
boy.
whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. What is that? That's a heart thing.
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Do it.
We have some men in here.
We're
I'm
ready.
not targeting you at all. I'm just saying this generally. So for many years after I got saved, for many years, I don't know. I'm just going to say what I was taught and what I've been told all of my life, from school all the way till now. Or not till now, but they always said, this was the saying about men cannot help it. They lust after women. Whether they, that doesn't mean anything because, their heart isn't in it. And so I was always told that. I was always told that. And I had a friend, a girlfriend, and her husband was a salesman and went out on her mom, and the mom knew it, and she just said, that's men. That's just normal for men. They just have to do that. They can't help it. They just have that in them. Well, so that's what I always thought all of my life until I heard a very seasoned, reputable minister teach on that. He said that is a sinner. That is not he's doing two different things here. You commit adult, that's sin. That is sin. That's a sinner. When you're born again, you are not like that. You are like that. A man is like that under the devil. I mean, if you're not under God, you're under the devil. So then the devil is your God, and you're going to be like him. Well, when you're born again and you're Christian, you're like Jesus. Jesus wasn't like that at all on earth. I mean, he wasn't, and so that's what we're to be like. So I just felt, just led to just kind of kill that, because I've heard ministers say that they have, taught other men that this is normal, Christian men, and that's wrong. It's not. And another thing is that they say, like a counselor for marriage, or even a minister maybe that you go to for counseling for marriage, that they will say the number 2 things in a marriage that needs to be there is the woman needs communication and the man needs sex. That is not true for a Christian. That is under the devil and under sin. I'm not saying anything bad against a marriage, intimate relationship. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about outside. This is what this talk about adultery. This is, you're married, you're having, intimacy with someone you're not married to, or outside of marriage. The Bible talks about that a lot. And anyways, just to kill that, because if you are a man and you've been raised in that belief, that's what you expect. So then you think, oh, well, that's just normal. I can do that. That's just normal. That's just normal for me to think that. Look at a woman, oh, I'm just immediately, because that's just normal. I'm supposed to do that. That is not true. And so we need to change that and teach the truth about that. That is not true.
Yeah.
That is not true at all. Yeah. So.
And it seems like, I don't know if we just assumed, or it seemed like years ago we were, you could kind of say the words on the inside don't really count. But they do count, and they almost count more because God is looking at the heart. A well-known minister said that he noticed over the years that people were judged on spiritual things faster than physical things. So like, the sin of worry, the sin of things that are spiritual on the inside, going on inside.
Yeah, heart issues.
Heart issues were judged stricter and faster than physical things. Like if you go out and steal something, or.
But then we think that the ones that people don't see, we're getting away with.
Yeah.
Or it's easy to trend to think that way.
Yeah.
But he's saying that doesn't work. That's not how that works. And he's saying that for our benefit, so we don't fall for those things.
Yeah. And so the testing that sometimes we'll go through, it's usually the inside stuff. It's not, okay, I'm going to watch you. Make sure you don't steal today, okay? But it can be, because we put levels on things, just naturally. We put, oh, well, murder is really bad, but worries, that's way down here. But God doesn't see it that way. I mean,
missing the mark is missing the mark.
Yeah.
I mean, where he's concerned, they all need a savior.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I heard this illustration, it'd be like if we were in a gymnasium and he said the only way you're going to survive and not die in this situation is if you can jump and touch the ceiling. And it doesn't matter how high you think you can jump, nobody's going to even, you think, well, I can do better than somebody else. Nobody can make it. Nobody can make it where this is concerned. Everyone needs a savior.
Yeah. But it's just interesting here. I love seeing, this is what really opened my eyes going through the Gospels, looking at the healing things and maybe other things in the middle of these. But I love seeing God's perspective of things. I mean, all the healing ones, if somebody died, Jesus is like, oh, they're just sleeping. No big deal. And it was a huge storm. Peace be still. he had such faith and confidence in that power backing him.
Yeah.
That he didn't have to scrounge up and try to get this amazing prayer with the perfect words.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't that big a deal.
Yeah. You know, if you're a parent and you have raised your child to obey, and you just know that if you're playing in this park and you're playing on the edge of the street, they will never go out in that street because you've trained them. If that child would even just, like the ball would go out there, let's say, and the child just is looking at it, you wouldn't have to say a word. You just know. Or if that child's pretty young, the child takes a couple steps and you would say, nope, and that's all you would have to do. You wouldn't have to raise your voice, you wouldn't have to start yelling at them, you wouldn't have to, because they're, trained. And I think spiritually that can be true when we're trained by the word, and so we know, because every family is different. Like in our family, our family here, our kids growing up, they couldn't say shut up. That was just really harsh. And so we just, because you never really say shut up. You're like, you usually say it pretty harsh, And so we just didn't allow that because it just, anyways. But you know what? Your family could say shut up and it'd be just fine. You're just cool with it.
Yeah.
But if we go by this, we're all going to be pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's
This
really
is
true.
the family of God.
Yeah.
Ground rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he goes on here, it's really good. But I say unto you, you might have heard this in the law, but I say unto you, and this is God's perspective.
Like your friend's house, you can do that at their house, but I tell you at this house,
Well, yeah,
you
he's
can't do
saying
that.
people have gone this close and they think we can get this close to the line.
yes.
And then Jesus is like, not
Way
forget
over
all that.
here.
It's way over here.
Yeah. And we could read all of this, but moving on to chapter 6.
You know what that's like, getting close to the line? I'm going back
boy.
to kids again. And you tell your kids, okay, we're going to go on this long drive to grandma's house. Don't touch each other. You guys will be cool. Just don't touch it. Keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah.
That's one of the rules. Yeah, and
And then
then
you're-
like this. How close can I get? And you're just,
I'm not touching
and
you.
you're,
I'm not
you
touching
want to get the reaction. You
Yeah.
want to get that without getting in trouble because I didn't touch him. I didn't touch him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
It
gonna
says
get burned.
right there.
You're going to get burned.
Yeah.
So chapter 6, it's the same sermon, and then he takes it, so he's telling his perspective of, love your enemy. And I mean, at the end of this, it says that the people were absolutely astonished at this teaching because it was totally different than anything they heard.
He was debunking all their traditions. They've grown up for years.
Yeah.
All of
their
those.
culture.
Yeah.
I remember when I first heard that. That debunked me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was.
Well, he said of the Pharisees,
What?
they were doing all the law on the outside, but the inside it was like dead men's bones.
Oh man.
And he was, man, that got mad at that because he brought it back to the heart. You might look good on the outside, but what? Yeah.
And we listen to different ones, and there's these street preachers, and they'll go to gay pride parades, and they'll get into these arguments, and they'll put these snippets online. And I think it's really good to see some of these things because it needs to be. Well, you look at Jesus, completely counterculture, but
Oh,
then
yeah.
the culture with these videos I was talking about, they'll say, well, God knows, and they're playing that same game way over here, but then God never moves this. This never moves. Something about God, He made it so we could stand on it. It's so absolute. This whole culture is trying to obscure every absolute, but
Oh, yeah.
it's right there. And when you preach that, man, it makes you mad. It astonishes people, or it just flat out makes them mad. He shows some of the problems he has with people, but
Yeah.
it's true nonetheless.
Yeah.
And
A
if
lot
we're
of
not
people
ready,
left Jesus.
yeah.
Yeah. But so chapter 5, Jesus is kind of talking about the bad things, like the sins. But then in chapter 6, he changes it into some good things that you could be doing. It's just good for us to know that we can be tested, and it's a heart thing. And so instead of just looking at outward things that, oh good, I'm not stealing today, I'm A+ for me.
Yay!
But we need to check up and judge ourselves on the inside things. So He says, verse 1 in chapter 6, take heed that ye do not your alms before men to be seen of them. That's a motive. That's a heart thing. Otherwise ye have no reward of your Father which is in heaven.
Ouch.
Therefore, when thou doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. These Pharisees are listening to this. Can you imagine how mad they are? Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But when thou doest alms, this is what Jesus is telling us to do. He said, change the heart, change the heart. What's the heart do?
Does everybody know what alms are? That's giving to the poor.
Yeah. Let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Let thine alms, that thy alms may be in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret, the heart, himself shall reward thee openly.
Wow.
Wow. And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray, standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. That was their whole motive. Verily I say unto you, so this is my perspective, they have their reward. That's it. But when we do those things, those hard things that maybe we do the right thing when nobody's watching us, God sees it. And he said you'll be rewarded openly. When we trust him, that's laying up treasures in heaven. But thou, verse 6, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Now, he's not saying that you better never pray out in public. You better never pray where people are hearing you. No, where's your motive? What's your motive? What's your motivation? And so, if we don't work on that inside thing, eventually it will come out. So if we're, I don't know, angry in our heart over and over and over again, it's gonna come out. You're gonna punch something. If you're worried over and over and over again, it's gonna come out. I remember, nobody knew what I was dealing with right away when I was 13 because I thought, oh, it'll get better, it'll get better. I was just worried over on this loop over and over and over again. We can get in that with stress, I don't know, being ashamed, guilty. You can get in these loops where it's really hard to get free. The devil's trying to start a stronghold, build a stronghold in you. You have to stop that loop. Amen. And when I was worried, eventually it came out and you guys found out about it. I was crying. I didn't know why. I didn't know how to put it into words until years later. But we have to get out of those loops because that could be a stronghold forming. Offense, that's huge. That is where John the Baptist, you think John the Baptist, he was born miraculously. He had this huge call of God in his life. He got offended and he died.
Terrible death.
Yeah. He got offended at Jesus.
That's okay. So the Israelites in the wilderness.
Yes.
Offended. Miriam
That's
got
where we're
leprosy.
going next.
Okay, sorry.
No. I wasn't going to do the leprosy thing. But
that's, look
offense.
at all of them. Was it 20 and above or 21 and above? They all died in the wilderness, didn't go in because of offense.
Yeah.
And offense leads to unbelief and doubt.
Yes. And offense, that is a huge loop. Once you get in that loop, if you get offended at somebody, everything they do just stacks on top of that. See, look, I knew it. Here they go again. And it's hard to get out of that because there's a spirit behind it.
And what happens is if you don't deal with that offense when it's just little, it grows bigger and then it does roots and then it roots in you in bitterness. And I think it's in Philippians. It talks about the root of bitterness. It's there to kill you.
Yes, that's
it's
all
not
it is.
there just to play.
No.
And when you're offended and that bitterness, now everything you do in life is filtered through that. And offense and bitterness can seem really reasonable to you. Well, they did this and they said this and I'm right and they're wrong and that offense, and then it can become more reasonable and more reasonable and more reasonable, but it's really just there to kill you.
And there was one time this person did something really not nice to me in my business and owed me money, and it was just not pretty, and then very spiteful. And so I was like sending them invoices and I'm like, I'm gonna just keep sending them invoices, whatever. And man, that loop is strong. It wants to suck you in for one purpose, to kill you, destroy you, and to steal from you. And I sent them 2 invoices, and the Lord said to me, is this worth it? Is that measly amount of money worth what you're giving up or what you're entering into? I'm like, okay, who cares how much they owe me? I'm done. And I didn't want to be in that loop anymore. So I just like blocked that person so I didn't have to see and get mad all over again. And I just walked away. And that's how you get out of that loop. You just gotta, you know what? And you don't have to wait for the other person to apologize or to, I'm sorry I did this. They might not ever do that.
There was a story of a minister and his wife, and they were traveling ministers, and they were at a church, and it just nothing was really happening. You know, they were used to seeing the power of God. They were used to seeing the gifts and manifestation, but just nothing really was happening. And this minister, I think it was during the night, he had a vision, and it was up this huge pipe. And he said all this water was coming in one side of this pipe, just blasting this pipe. But then on the other side, just this little sputter was coming out. And he said in this vision, he could almost feel that sputter. And he's like, oh. And he said, Lord, what is this? He said, that's my power trying to flow through you. And he said, well, what's blood? He said, unrepentant strife. And the Lord showed him a situation that just happened. They were staying somewhere. And when he was driving home, his wife was there. On the way home, there was somebody selling cantaloupes in this box. And and you get this sack of them for so much money. And so he brought the sack home. And the first 2 looked good, but the rest were rotten. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to go over there. She said, no, don't do that. But that was enough strife to stop that. And the Lord was showing him that so he could get that back open. And so he repented. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's so, the devil just, yes, God, there's a testing, there's a proving, but the devil tests us too.
Let me just I'll make it really short.
Oh, no.
So I worked for 12 years at the public school in Elba Lake. And I started at day 1 when they started a school-age childcare program. They had just gotten this big grant. And so they hired me to be the director of it. I had never done that before or anything, but it was pretty exciting, and I could bring my kids with. So I brought Kelly first, because she was of age, and then a little bit later I brought John, and then I had Natalie during that time, and then Tom would come and be, help, and then bring Natalie. Anyways, so it was many years, and then they got a new community ed director, and this program's under them. Well, she wanted my job. I just heard this off the grapevine, and so anyway, so they lied about something I did on the bus, and it was just ridiculous. There was an extra child that came at the last second, and so they had shared a seatbelt to I can't remember if they were sisters or if they were cousins. They were related anyway, and they were sitting. And school buses don't even have seatbelts, but it was a bus like ours, and so anyways, so they fired me over it. Well, then I found out later the people that were working that I had hired under me, they told me that another gal, they put another person on that could drive bus, and she was having them share seatbelts. I mean, they weren't even related or anything. And so, it wasn't even anything that they should have fired me. Anyway, so I fought it. And I wanted to get,
Unemployment?
Yeah, unemployment. And they came out with really bad things that they said. I mean, and I saw them do this with other people. And here's the deal, though. The Lord told me for 2 years to quit. That my time was done there. My kids didn't want to come anymore. They had gotten older. And they didn't want to go there anymore. And we were homeschooling, so I thought this was a great opportunity for my kids to be with kids.
It was.
And it was just, kind of cool to bring the kids. And anyways, I didn't quit. And the Lord kept telling me. And so really it was my fault, too, because I was in disobedience. And so there comes a certain point where that grace stops. And now you're on your own, And so anyways, it was really bad. And finally, this whole thing with the unemployment thing, I was getting so under it. And my sister, Patty, she's on right now if she's still listening, she fought for her job because she was lied about and she won. But it was a huge deal. She had to get a lawyer and everything. It was huge. So she was like, you need to fight this. And normally I would have went, yeah. I mean, of course, because they lied about me, took my job. Anyways, so the Lord told me to let it go. Man, that was hard. Because you felt like you were saying they were right and they lied about me. Then I thought, what did all these people think about me? We're in a small town. What did all these people think about me? And what I did and everything. And I had to let it go. And man, that was hard.
You're going to tell what the Lord told you why? What would happen?
He said if I would keep going, I would go 5 years back.
He told you would have won.
Yeah, I would have
But you
won.
would go.
But I would have gone 5 years back in my ministry. Yeah, I know. And man,
that would have
was
been your
humbling.
reward. You would have gotten some money, whoop-de-doo, but then you lose all these years of your life.
Yeah, save my
Of ministry.
reputation, my name, which is huge. That's huge. All those words, all those things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the devil watches and he gets you right where it hurts. He tries, And
Well, and guess who the most offended one is? The devil.
Oh.
He was offended at God from the very beginning. And offense will really make you delusional. Because it did it with the Israelites. They were like, we should go back. At least when we were in Egypt, we had flesh pots. And you know what that was? That was the ifs, ands, and buts left of the whatever. They had pots of flesh. They were
like hot dogs.
At least we have meat. Yeah, the cheap
John,
ones.
look at John. He likes hot dogs.
The devil became so delusional that he said, I'm going to make my throne above God's. And then it not only hurt him, that he got kicked out of heaven, but all these angels went with him. I'm like, do you not see how stupid that is? But they were probably offended too and went with him.
Imagine how much that pleases the devil to get one of God's children offended.
Man,
oh my.
man.
And offended at God. Really, bottom line, offended at God.
And it doesn't matter if that person was right or wrong, or it doesn't matter. It's about you and your heart.
Yeah. Well, and I heard Keith Moore said this now. I'll never forget this. He said that the presence of God is the manifest goodness of God, where strife is the manifest presence of the devil. You can tell if you go into a house and there's strife there, you can tell you're like, ooh, this house is spicy. This is not good. Something's going on here. You're like, oh, I think there's an elephant under that rug. That's not good. You can tell because that's the manifest presence of the devil.
Wow.
So anytime you let strife or offense in your life, just recognize you're giving the devil free space. Come on in. Make yourself at home.
Yeah, wow.
No.
So the Israelites, let's go to Exodus 14 and verse 11. Exodus 14:11. Now, these Israelites, they didn't even hold it back.
No.
Like, you knew exactly what was in their heart.
Oh my gosh.
Anything that was in their heart, they were so involved in that it came right out.
Woo. And we all do the same thing. You think you can hide offense and strife? You can't. Everyone, you can feel it. You can see it. You're like,
Now,
ooh.
it said that the Israelites were brought into the wilderness to be proved, tested and proved.
And humbled.
Yes. So we're going to look at a few times that they were tested so that we know what a test might come and look like.
I remember a minister, and the Lord told this to him. He said, anytime you feel like you're not being treated right, just know this, that the devil's working on you. Anytime you feel like you're being mistreated,
Wow.
just realize that. It's good for us to realize that the devil's working on us.
And the same with, because that's making you feel sorry for yourself. Yeah. And that is the opening that door up.
Because back in Matthew, or maybe one of the sermons there, it talked about Jesus told us how to react and how to respond when we're being ill-treated. He said, do good to them, bless them, pray for them.
Yeah. There was one time, this was years ago, I don't remember what it was about, but so I think you had said something.
Sorry.
No, and I got so, how could she treat me like that? All the inside crap. And all of a sudden, I stopped myself.
Was this yesterday?
No.
Okay, good.
I stopped myself and I said, I swallowed my pride and I said, you're right. And everything in me is like, ugh. But when I said that, then it, poof, gone. Because, you most likely were right. So.
Kelly, I have to tell us something cute about Kelly. You know what Kelly will do? This is so sweet. She'll, I don't even realize what's going on, and then she'll come back in the room and say to the family, "Okay, you guys, I'm really sorry." We're like, "What did you do?"
Right.
She goes, "Oh well, I kind of got short with you and complain, or just kind of complain." And we're like, "You did?" "Oh, I did on the inside."
Yeah.
Well, it's just a good thing that you did. I mean, if you needed to do that, it's just good to do it.
Other times I'll go, man, I could get away with so much if I just kept my mouth shut.
I know, right? Yeah.
Just not say anything.
So cute.
Exodus 14:11, and they said unto Moses, because there were no graves. So wait a second, what happened? So this was when they made it to the Red Sea and they saw that Pharaoh and his army was behind them. And that's a test.
Yeah.
When the pressure's on.
Yeah.
And it's like you're rushed, you're about to die.
Yeah.
And then what happens when that pressure is on, when it's a life and death situation? They turned on Moses. That was a test. Were they going to trust God or turn on each other? And they failed the test. And they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? It's kind of like when the disciples went to Jesus and said, don't you care that we perish? They're just so spiteful.
And I don't know if you're going to mention this later, but this happened over and over where they would accuse Moses. And then when God would speak, it's revealed that God took it personally. Moses is following God. And when they spoke against Moses, God says, I hear them speaking against me.
Whoa.
Because Moses was doing what God told him to do.
And we can come to that point where it's a hard situation and you're being pressured. I mean, a lot of times we can even, God, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
You turn on him.
Right.
Oh man. Wherefore hast thou dealt with us to carry us forth out of Egypt? I mean, Moses, his life is threatened too.
And here they've been crying out for somebody to come save them out of slavery for how many hundreds of years? They're like, help us, help us, help us, help us. And God's like, all right, here's your help. No, we don't want him.
Yeah, and they were so happy with Moses leading them out of there. So then, verse 12, is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness.
Lies.
They said, get us out.
Oh man, Moses, he just said to them, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. And it goes on. But that was a failed test right there. Let's go now, because guess what? It happens pretty quick after this. The next chapter, 15 and verse 23. So then they got past the Red Sea. Yay. They're still alive. They're on the other side. And they went 3 days in the wilderness. And I have written here, I don't know if I heard this somewhere, 33 miles. And they found no water.
Amplifies this 33, yeah.
Okay. And they found no water. You know, when you're really thirsty and when you're really hangry, the devil can wreak havoc. And they came to Moriah, and they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. And the people, that was a test right there. They murmured against Moses. It's always his fault. Saying, what shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which was cast into the waters. When he cast in the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. Then, look how good God is. After twice now, they've just, went back in his face. Verse 26, and said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. So after that, they came to Elim, where were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. So yay, everything's good again. You think they had something to be grateful for? No. Next chapter, next verse, 16:1.
Oh no.
And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai.
Wouldn't you think? Okay, guys. You know what this place is called? Let's try to keep it together. Just a little, a little more effort.
Yeah. Alright, then verse 2, and the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness.
Now it's Aaron too. They're like, you know what, Aaron? You're getting some of this too. I'm so mad.
And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots,
Yum.
and when we did eat bread to the full.
Yay.
For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Devil comes when you're hungry. That was a test. So when you're angry, that's a
hungry.
test.
It's okay. Don't get hungry. Bring enough snacks because we're going through this wilderness of sin.
Verse 4, and then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather certain bread every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. Man, every single thing they came to, that was a test, a proving. And so they failed the first test, they failed the second test, they failed the third test. So God's giving them another round. Have you ever come to something over and over and over again? There's something you're missing. Wasn't there a movie? Yeah, like
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day, where they keep going the same day over and over until they finally get it and they make a change and they get out.
Christian version is 77 Chances. Really good movie.
That is
Yeah,
really
that's
good movie.
a really good movie.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And here you think, when finally they come to the promised land and you would think that God's judgment of anybody over 20, you're dead. You're like, oh my gosh, that's so harsh. No, you failed every single test. This is because of the actions and test failing you did. You put yourself in this situation. And we do that all the time. God, why is this happening to me? God tried to give you a way out like 500 times. And you were like, no, I don't want to do it that way. I want to
It
do
wasn't
it my
impossible because Joshua and Caleb both passed those tests.
way. Yep.
And what you had to do to pass the test was study the material that was given you.
That's
And the material that God gave them was what He said about the land. They had to just look at that. And you can look at Joshua and Caleb when they went in as spies. They said exactly what God said about the land, even though they saw the exact same stuff that the other 10 spies. And we have that same test. We've been given the material. And you can tell if a Christian's murmuring, their eyes aren't on the material. They're failing their test.
Yes. And you know, when you got fired and that person did that to me, I mean, every one of us has had something being done to them. Was that a test to see how we would respond?
Man.
Sometimes it takes longer, but thank God He's faithful. Like He gives us chances. Wow. So verse 20, so Moses gives them the directions. You gather the food every day. Don't gather more than one day until it's the Sabbath. Then we all know the story. Guess what? That was too simple for them? I don't know. Verse 20, notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left of it until the morning, so they were supposed to gather enough for that day, not leave it over. And it bred worms and stank, and Moses was wroth with them. Man. Wow. And you can just see this is a heart issue going on here that it's like they can't even obey if they wanted to. It can't get much easier than this. So verse 27, and it came to pass that they went out, some of the people on the seventh day, for to gather, and they found none.
Shocker.
They weren't supposed to go out. They were supposed to listen to what God told them. Oh my gosh. Well, we say that, but we fail the same way because we have the same condition.
Yeah. I remember there was a minister talking to God and said, man, how could Adam and Eve be duped like that and do that and listen to the devil? And the Lord asked them, why do you let him do that? Why do you get duped by the devil and believe his lies? Oh. It's kind of like everybody has a junk drawer. Even organized people do. And if organizing is good for one person, I mean, we all have our areas
I'm right here.
that we're strong in.
You know, they say the thing that annoys you in somebody else the most is the thing you do yourself.
No.
Yeah. So if you're like, oh, that person's so annoying, you probably do the same thing.
And the Lord, verse 28.
I'm sorry. Don't look at me.
Thanks a lot. And the Lord said unto Moses, how long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? How long? All right, can we handle a little bit more testing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Chapter 17 and verse 1. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin, so they're out of there, after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Now you'd think that they would remember the other time with the water, and God provided, and the food. Verse 2, wherefore...
We've done this before. You
Yeah.
can do it this time.
Wherefore the people did chide with Moses, and said, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Wherefore do you tempt the Lord? So instead of the Lord testing them, it said this in like 1 Corinthians, that the people tested the Lord.
Yeah,
You don't want
I
to do
said in the Amplified, why do you tempt the Lord and try his patience?
Verse 3, and the people thirsted there for water, and the people murmured against Moses, and said, wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt, to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst?
Oh my gosh.
And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, what shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said unto Moses, go on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand, and go. Man, God is so patient. Even after that, he's like, fine, I'll give you water. Verse 6, behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock, in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, and the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of that place Mashah, whatever, is the Lord, let's see. And because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Oh my gosh. But you know, we can get to that point if we worry about something. And God can be like, I delivered you out of this and this and this and this and this. And now you're going to worry now? Don't you think I'll take care of you now? Man. So notice here, though, how they treated Moses. They're doing the same thing with God. And so this is kind of a test for people that are in like godly or any authority over you. That's a big test. Because Moses, it said like he was a type of pastor back then. And how do we treat authority? Even like people in our job, our boss, or anybody who's in authority. How do we treat them? Because God's authority, how do we treat God?
So don't you think about, I think about this all the time about, I mean, didn't God know that they would need water? I mean, 3 days in the desert, in the wilderness, you're going to need water. And this went over and over and over again with water, food, water, food, water, food. And then I thought, this isn't really fair to the people. Why doesn't God provide the water ahead of time? He knows, why aren't they bringing water with them? Why aren't they, carrying things of water with them? I mean, they're in the wilderness. And then it was interesting because then if you look, are you going to Hebrews?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
If you look at Hebrews, hold your place there.
Yeah.
In Hebrews 4, well, it says in verse 3 too, it uses them as an example. And it says, they are an example for us today.
Yeah.
This is our example. That's why I go back to that all the time.
Yeah.
And so it says in verse 3, Hebrews 3:12, it says, take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. And it goes on, it says, verse 19, so we see they could not enter into the promised land because of unbelief. And then chapter 4, verse 3, it says, for we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of of the world. And I'm thinking, if they were finished, how come it got to the point where they were just like so much out of water? What was the deal? Well, if you go down here in verse 10, for he that is entered into his rest, he also has ceased from his own works, as God did from his. Let us labor therefore to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief, for the word of God. Then he goes on to how powerful the word of God is. And so you got to go back to what God said. I am bringing you into a promised land. He tells it, milk and honey. I mean, just all these wonderful things. I'm bringing you into the promised land. And so what he was trying to prove and humble them was that he would be their God. And they would go to him.
Wow, yes.
Instead, they were raised in slavery 400 years. That's all they knew. This generation, that's all they knew. And so they were always complaining about their slave masters. They were complaining about the Pharaoh. They were complaining about their life. They were complaining. You can get automated at that's all you see. And that's all, you know. And I've gotten like that before. Well, Kelly, you got that, you know, you tell that testimony about your job. I got that when my kids were little. I was like, oh my gosh, will they ever grow up? I'm in this house day in, day out with these kids. And you can just get, you know, anything. It can be anything. You can get, you know, the car you've dreamt of, and pretty soon you're complaining about the car, you know? And it can get like that. But what God wanted was, he wanted them to believe he was their provider.
Wow, yes.
He brought them out to him. He brought us out. He didn't just bring us out to wander in a wilderness. He brought us out to him.
Wow.
To him. And so we're to go to him. We're supposed to believe. He's supposed to be so close that we talk to him about it. But they constantly were looking at Moses as the problem. We can do that with our job, with our boss.
Oh, wow.
We can do that with anybody who's, you know, in charge. We can do that, you know, like you said, with your pastor. You know, why are we doing this? Why are they like that? Why are they getting us? Why are they... You know, you can do that about your parents. You can do that about, you know, the person that's in charge of your apartment complex. You can do that about, you know what I mean? And anyways, I think this is so powerful because we're not going to get any further if we stay right here. We're not going to get any further than what they got.
Wow.
We're going to get a little glimpse. They got a little glimpse of heaven. They ate some food from heaven. You know, they got a glimpse of miracles. I mean, it was really miraculous what happened and stuff. But they still walked it out.
Man.
They still, you know, they stayed in that place until they believed. See, rest, that's faith. Only, you cannot have rest without faith. And that rest is faith in God.
That's good. Yep.
You have to cease from your own works. You know, how come it's going that way? And how come I can't have my way in this? How come I can't have my way in this? How come I can't have my way in this? How come I can't have my way in this?
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
And you've got to cease from your own way, from your own works. See, when it's God's will, righteousness is having right standing with God, but it also means doing it God's way. Doing it God's way. God's will, God's way. And God will sometimes say, do it the way you want to. You know, you can do either way, whatever you would like, whatever, you know. But we've got to get to the point where all God has to do is just say, hey. And we're just immediately, like that dog thing that you talked about, we're just immediately like, what? So I'll just tell it myself. This happened to me just today. It's embarrassing.
I'm sorry.
But I tell you guys lots of embarrassing things. It's terrible. I don't know. I go to the Lord and I say, why? Why? Anyways, so I took that scripture. Remember, I told you that the Lord brought me back to this scripture. And what did I say to you 17 years ago? What did I say to you? And it was Leviticus 26:8. 5 of you shall chase 100, 10,000, and your enemies will fall before you. And then it goes on, multiply you, fruitful, establish you by coming, set my tabernacle among you. He gave me this at the beginning of our church. And so I finally listened to him and went back to this. And so we together, agreed in prayer together on this. Well, there was a little tweaky thing that I wrote down in my little vision board.
Uh-oh.
I know, and I put one little word in there. And I'm not going to tell you what it was. It's not a sin or anything, but I'm not going to tell you what it was because otherwise, you know, it doesn't matter what it was. It wasn't the word God told me. I just put one little word in there instead of saying 5 years. So I put, you know, thank you, Lord, that we have 100 church members. Well, I put, like, if you would say 100 faithful church members or 100, you know, loving church members or 100, you know, I put a word, I put one of my, what I thought was just a really cool thing that would be, you know, in there. And so I was like, I had an unrest. I had something was wrong. Kenneth Hagin used to talk about it. It's like taking a shower with your socks on.
Ew.
Something don't feel right.
Yeah, there was just something there. So, you know, I'm taking extra time this week, you know, in the Lord and seeking Him. And so the Lord brought me back to that. And so I read it. I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, I got that, you know, read the chapter. Okay, yes, you know, I agree with that, Lord. And we're lifting it up, agreeing in prayer. He said, look on your list. And I go, oh, that would be kind of cool, you know. And so then he brought me back to the Israelites. Why? They're our example today.
Oh boy.
They're a huge example for us. And then he, you know, showed me different things and stuff. And he said they needed to be, then he brought me into the New Testament about that we're supposed to be like Jesus. Jesus was like God. God sent him. Jesus sends us. We're supposed to be like, and so really he said, if you're going to add a word in there, it would be godly.
That's good. Yeah.
Godly church members. So I crossed it out and I put godly. I thought, whew. But see, there are some things that have to be his way. They just have to be his way. And we have to be quick to humble ourselves and not be like, well, you know, you know what I mean? That heart thing is we can all, you know, and all of us can do that. And so, anyways, and we have to be open for that. You know, I mean, I ask the Lord all the time, you know, correct me, change this, whatever, just so that I'm right with you, you know, doing it your way.
I had seen the coolest video, and it was this competition. It almost looked like a cheerleader competition. They were in this big gym, and there were all these girls, and they had them all in lines, and here it was like this drill, where you like drill for the army, where you have to left, right, about, face, blah, 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 blah. But it was, how good can you follow these commands? So they had one person, and they would follow the commands. If you hesitated, if you were offbeat, if you did it wrong, you were out. So they started doing it, and instantly, just girls were just, stop. And they were just, you're done. And they knew it, because they're like, oh, I did the wrong step, or oh, I hesitated. And they were just dropping like flies. So then I noticed that the drill sergeant would say, now cancel all the previous commands and start over. Because they would have to remember the commands from before, and they would freeze. And then they would pause and get rid of girls, and then they keep going. And it was, how fast can you follow these commands? How fast can you remember them? And there was a beat to it, and you had to stay, and there was no music or anything. They just had to know, we've been drilled at this. So it was kind of like Simon Says, but really fast. And finally, it was down to like these 3 girls, and one of them, it was one girl that won. Because she was so good at following the commands, remembering what was said, and not even thinking about it. Because you couldn't even pause to hesitate and think about it. There was no time for that. And that's what God is drilling into us. And that's why the little things matter. Doesn't matter that, oh, I stepped to the left and when they said right, oh, well, I'll just fix that. It matters when it's in that high stress, when you're in combat. You need to not go, well, we need to talk about why are we going this way. No, there's no time for that.
One thing that God really pointed out to me personally was, well, and I think it bears witness with everybody, is when you get good at something or you've done something for a while, like let's say you've been at your job for quite a while and you've done it this certain way, you don't check anymore. because you know.
Oh man.
And so then if there's something new or if there's a change, you immediately go into automated, I know how to do this. So when this person's telling you, who's supposed to be telling you, they're in charge, they're telling you, now this is the way this is going to go. You're in your mind, you're tweaking it. You're like, it would be better if it was this way. And you could be right. Or it would be better this way. But they're telling you this is the way. And really what they're hearing is they're told what this is supposed, but the Lord said, when you know something about it, it's a little bit harder because you have to lay it down more. So I observed something today. It wasn't anything bad.
I'm sorry.
So today Kelly and Kelly started with Natalie first exercising with her with weightlifting and stuff. And Natalie, 2 years, Natalie's been not only doing it, but studying it, continually studying it. And following people that give you tips about it so you don't hurt yourself, it's more effective. Because if you're doing an exercise with your feet like this, if you turn your feet just like this, it's more effective on certain exercises. Well, so she has studied that. So she tells us that. So she started with Kelly first, and then I joined. And this is my second week. And I know nothing about this. So I'm all ears. I'm like, okay, and I just believe her. She's been doing this for 2 years, and I see, the results of it now, and I see, and Kelly, we're pretty much, I'm pretty much, Natalie, how do you want, how should we do this? And she actually tells us everything, your back, your shoulders, your arms, so pull it, to your side, keep your elbows by your side, just the whole thing. And so we're just, okay. John started today. Now, John's a guy. He knows about, weights, lifting, different types of things. He questioned everything. Not in a mean way, but just because he knows some stuff. He has some muscle. Mm-hmm. He's got, naturally he's got muscle. And so, doing it maybe, maybe if we did it like this, or maybe you should stand, And so Natalie would do it first, and he'd say, well, maybe you should stand over here, or maybe you should. We didn't do that because we didn't know. We didn't have anything.
Nothing.
I would venture to guess that those in the wilderness with Moses, the ones that always questioned, the ones that always rubbed the other way, wasn't easily led, the complainers, the ones that, blamed Moses, blamed Aaron, were the ones that knew something. Mm-hmm. They probably, maybe when they were slaves back in Egypt, they were more of the leaders. Maybe they were in charge of a certain amount, because we're talking about 3 million people here. Maybe they were in charge of a group. Maybe they led something. Maybe they, and so the more so I've been pastoring for 20 some years. It can be harder for me then to tweak this one little word, where I thought this other word was pretty cool. It'd be kind of cool if we had 100 people all like that. And I thought, well, godly, why? Kind of thought that word kind of meant that. What I mean? Mm-hmm. Because you've seen, you walked,
and it's so easy to do. So I've been bus driving for a couple years now, and it's kind of, I've been doing it more. So now when Mom sometimes drives the bus, you have to get in a mode of, yeah, I'm a good driver. I've never been in an accident, XYZ, whatever. But then every time she's driving, because I used to be her bus monitor and her GPS for her, and tell her, oh, we need to turn here. So now when she knows where to go, I have to take everything in me, which is really good for me, to not tell her where to go. Until I'm like, okay, she's not taking this exit. Then I have to think to myself, okay, do you know you're taking this exit, right? And then she'll go, yeah, I know that. Okay, good. Don't say anything. And when she's bus driving, be like, she's driven so many years more than me. She knows what she's doing. She's driven a bigger bus than me. And yet everything in me is like, you need to tell her what to do. You need to tell her, oh, look out for that. Oh, don't turn there. Oh, slow down. Oh, turn like this.
But you know what? I do the same thing when she's driving the car. And she drives most of the time now. Yeah, and so I have to do that same thing. I have to
You know what though?
I even say to her, okay, I'm not gonna say anything anymore.
I
all
don't
did the
even
same
like
thing.
driving
15
in the
minutes
city
later.
when things pop out.
But you know what? That's good for us.
It is good.
It's good for us because carnal living, just human nature, is being critical. This is what they were doing. They were criticizing every single thing Moses did.
Yeah.
And all Moses was doing was following orders. That's all he was doing. He wasn't even making these things up himself. He was just following the directions. And yet they had to question every single thing. Why are we going left here? Moses, I don't know. The GPS said so. We're turning left. We're following the pillar of fire and the cloud of smoke. We're following that, okay? And yet they questioned every single thing. But it's good for us. It's good for us to do these
Good
things.
test.
It's good for us to get behind slow drivers and then think, why are they driving like that? You don't know, maybe they have a full cup of coffee. Maybe, I don't know.
I think it's really interesting how it ends in that chapter of Hebrews 4 with the rest. Labor to enter into the rest. Because faith is a rest. You cannot be in faith if you are not in
Oh
rest.
man.
You just can't. If you're in faith and you're believing God and you're leaning on Him, you're resting.
Yeah.
And if you're not in a rest, you are not ceasing from your own works. It's just the way it is. You're trying to make this happen yourself.
And it's so much easier to just relax and be like, oh, she's been bus driving for XYZ amount of years. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the scenery.
But you know what's really
take a
funny?
nap.
So Natalie, we're in the bus together, and Natalie we're in the car or something, and we start talking about this, and I start telling Natalie all the years, because I started driving bus. I took my bus driving test when I was pregnant with Natalie. So that's how many. So I told Natalie, I've done everything wrong, everything you can
I got
imagine.
the bus stop twice.
I
so
have
you're helping.
done. But so I'm telling her all this, and she's like, "That makes me feel so much better." I'm like, "You're welcome." Oh my gosh.
And that's why it's called an accident, because it's not like you're doing it on purpose. But yeah. And it comes with experience. So then I shouldn't go to mom and be like, oh, in this situation, like, let's say a car is going to pull out in front of me and she goes, oh, there's a car, and go, I know what I'm doing, don't tell me what to do. No, I need to trust her years of experience and be like, oh, thank you. So I consciously make sure when I'm driving and maybe it's weather or there's a car or something and she'll say something to not just go, don't tell me how to drive. Because that's all your inside thoughts are, oh my gosh, don't tell me what to do. I know what I'm doing. To go, oh, that's wisdom from years of experience. I should listen to that and go, oh, okay, thank you. We should always be teachable.
Yep.
Always.
The test.
Because, yeah, it's a test.
Yeah.
It's a test.
But just think, we can always walk in a rest.
Yes.
We can live in that labor. What's our labor? Enter into the rest. Why are we laboring at anything else?
Yeah, and the cheat code on that pass, the master answer for all those questions and all those tests is to live by faith, to walk by faith. And faith comes by what He told us. That's the manuscript that we're studying and have the test on. And if we put the materials in our eyes, we put the materials in our ears, if we keep them in our hearts, we're going to live that thing out by faith, please God, and stay in rest.
Yep. Don't try to do it alone.
Yeah.
Do it with God.
And really, faith is believing and trusting God. So
Yes.
we're resting in Him. Yeah.
So my questioning her then the whole time she's driving is, I'm not trusting that she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
That's really what it all comes down to. Is when you have
And
to
there's many
critique.
times that I don't.
Yeah.
But then I need to say, what do you think about this? What do I do here? What do I,
And there's times when I'm driving and maybe it's like icy roads and I'm like, so how fast do you think I should go? Or what would you do in this situation?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
Both sitting in different spots of the bus.
Yeah.
If she's the one driving, she might be feeling something that you want.
Or
Yeah.
I see something up ahead. Or she,
Yeah. And we didn't easily come to those points.
No.
And I really believe, like, through all the years and stuff, because we're very different. And we can go like this easily. But because we've worked through those, and there were hard times. There were times we were crying. There were times we were yelling at each other. There have been times where we have these family meetings and we're upset, you know, and then we go, okay, let's really talk about this and let's really work through this. And everybody gets to talk, you know, everybody gets to.
Yeah.
And we've worked through some really hard, I mean, just doing this panel, we had to work through a lot doing this panel. And because we're very strong personalities, very strong personalities. Maybe that's why Tom doesn't want to be with us. That's probably.
Hi, Dad. Love you.
I love you.
Yeah, but anyways, it's been really good for us. I have never, ever experienced something like this before. Ever. Never. And I've really never seen a panel or a working together like this with family on a continual basis. You could do it one time. You can put it on one time. You can be like super nice one time. But on a continual basis, you can't fake it anymore.
And the devil's really good at pointing things out about others to try to get you to grab onto that. To, oh my gosh, or whatever. It could be the stupidest, littlest, minute thing that you do all the time.
Mhm.
Yep.
And you just have to, nope, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And not only just do this, but to live together. Because we all have different ideas of how, I mean, just get us in the kitchen.
In a small house.
It's
It's
we
not
all
like it's,
have really
yeah.
different ideas. But I think that it's really been miraculous. And I think that's why, like some of us, we've spent whole summers together doing stuff every weekend. We spent, I mean, Taya at the YMCA,
Oh, child.
that was something. I mean, you talk about putting us under pressure.
Tired,
And hard
pressure
work,
sores.
tired, yes. And, having the police come and dealing with drama and kids and, oh my gosh. I mean, but to go through that together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, God does that for a reason.
It's
Yeah.
to humble us and to prove us.
Because there's a foundation here now. Yeah.
That's right.
He was
Praise
teaching
God.
us teamwork,
Yes.
and he did it well.
Yeah. Working through, just hard things and,
Because we always brought it back to him.
yeah,
Like, you know what, you're the one driving, so show us.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then relax.
Yes, yeah. As long as you keep him in charge.
He doesn't
Yeah.
expect like absolute perfection. He expects progress. As long as you're working towards, change me, use me, let's work on this together. Then it's open. Well, that's like even if there was an argument or something happens, if one person is not willing to change or to be
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm
We're gonna
sorry,
talk about
I'll work on this.
Yeah.
Or, okay, I see that. And then they do it again. But if they're working on it, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, even when you would sit and talk about it, if one person won't do that,
Well, then it's over.
then it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, if one person shuts down, if one person just wants to stay
Well,
in that
that's the
place
way
and
I
not
am.
work, yeah. Yeah, that just kills it right there. Yeah.
Praise God, we're all working on it.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Whew.
Thank you, Lord.
Well, we will be back Sunday morning on live here, and you can join us in person. We'd love to see you.
Yes.
Yep.
God bless you.
bless.
Love you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.